My daughter told her husband I was dead because she was ashamed of me. Not because I was cruel, not because I was absent, not because I'd done anything wrong. Because I was a mechanic. Because I worked with my hands. Because the grease under my fingernails and the steel-toed boots on my feet didn't match the life she'd built with a man worth $14 million. She erased me the way people erase a typo. Quickly, cleanly, without looking back. She told her husband that her father had died of a heart attack years ago. She told her in-laws the same story. She told her son, my grandson, a boy I'd held the day he was born, that his grandfather was gone. She built an entire life on the foundation of my absence, and for 9 years, it worked. Then one afternoon, a teenager walked into the gas station where I work part-time and asked for directions. He looked at my name tag. He looked at my face. And he said something that stopped my heart. "Your last name is Novak? My mom's maiden name is Novak. She said her dad died before I was born. But you look exactly like the man in the one photo she kept." Before we go any further, thank you for being here. If this story has your attention, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from today. It truly helps this channel reach more people who need to hear these stories. And a gentle reminder, while this story carries real emotions and real lessons, some names, details, and events have been fictionalized for narrative and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals is coincidental. The truth behind this message is what matters. Stay with me. My name is Victor Novak. I'm 62 years old. I live in a one-bedroom apartment above a hardware store in Beaumont, Texas. It's not much. A kitchen the size of a closet, a bathroom with a shower that takes 5 minutes to get warm, and a bedroom where the window faces the alley. But it's mine. I pay my rent on time. I keep it clean. And nobody can take it from me because nobody wants it. I wasn't always here. For 30 years, I lived in a house on Cypress Street, a small 2-bedroom bungalow I bought when I was 25 years old with savings from 6 years of working at Beaumont Automotive. That house was my pride. Not because it was beautiful, it wasn't, but because I'd earned every board, every shingle, every dollar of the mortgage with work I wasn't ashamed of. I'm a mechanic. I've been a mechanic since I was 17, when my father took me to the shop where he worked and said, "Victor, this is how men like us survive. We learn to fix things." He put a wrench in my hand, and I never put it down. My father, Stanley Novak, was a welder. His father, Peter Novak, was a pipe fitter. 3 generations of men who built and fixed things for other people. We weren't educated. We weren't refined. We were useful. And in my family, being useful was the highest compliment you could give a man. I married young, Sarah Gonzalez. We met at a dance hall in 1987 when I was 22 and she was 20. She was a cashier at a grocery store, pretty in a quiet way, with a laugh that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. We got married in 1989. Small wedding. Her mother cooked. My father gave a toast that was 3 words long. Don't screw up. We had 1 child, a daughter, Christina Marie Novak, born January 12, 1991, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. When the nurse put her in my arms, I looked at her face, perfect, brand new, untouched by the world, and I made a promise. I said, "I'm going to give you everything I never had." I meant it, and I tried. God knows I tried. Sarah and I worked hard to give Christina opportunities. I took overtime at the shop, weekends, holidays, double shifts. Sarah got a second job as a night receptionist at a dental office. Between us, we made enough to keep Christina in good schools, buy her books, pay for the piano lessons she wanted, fund the dance classes she loved. Christina was smart, not just book smart, socially smart.
She had a gift for reading rooms, for understanding what people wanted to hear, for adapting herself to whatever environment she was in. At school, she was the model student. At church, she was the polite daughter. At home, she was our everything.
But there was something else about Christina that I noticed early and tried to ignore. She was embarrassed by us. It started small. In elementary school, she asked Sarah to drop her off a block away from the entrance so the other kids wouldn't see our car, a 1994 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. In middle school, she stopped inviting friends to the house. When I asked why, she said, "Our house is too small, Dad. Everyone else lives in nice neighborhoods." In high school, she told a friend on the phone, I overheard this through the hallway door, that her father works in an office. Not a garage, an office. She'd reinvented me into something more presentable. I told Sarah about it. She was hurt but understanding. "She's a teenager, Victor. They're all embarrassed by their parents. She'll grow out of it." She didn't grow out of it. She grew into it. Christina graduated valedictorian. She earned a full scholarship to Rice University in Houston, the first person in either of our families to attend a university. I cried at her graduation. Not elegant, dignified tears. The ugly, heaving kind that a father cries when his daughter achieves something he could never have imagined for himself. At Rice, Christina transformed. She dropped the Beaumont accent. She learned to dress differently, understated, expensive-looking, the kind of clothes that whisper money instead of shouting it. She joined clubs, attended events, built a network of friends who came from families nothing like ours. She came home less and less. When she did visit, she was different, polished, careful. She'd look around the house on Cypress Street with an expression I recognized but couldn't name at first. Later, I understood it. It was appraisal. The same look a real estate agent gives a property before deciding it's not worth listing. Sarah noticed it too. "She's pulling away from us, Victor." She's becoming her own person. That's what we wanted. There's a difference between becoming your own person and becoming ashamed of where you came from. Sarah was right, but I didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe that the daughter I'd worked double shifts to educate still valued the home she came from. I wanted to believe that the grease under my fingernails hadn't become something she needed to hide. After Rice, Christina got a job at a marketing firm in Houston. She was good at it. She was good at everything that involved persuasion, presentation, making things look better than they were. She moved into an apartment in the Heights, a neighborhood I'd never heard of, but that apparently mattered to people who care about that sort of thing. Then, in 2015, Christina met Bradley Ashworth. Bradley came from old Texas money. His grandfather had been in oil. His father had been in oil. Bradley was in investments, which, as far as I could tell, meant he managed the money his family had already made. He was 30. Christina was 24. He drove a black Mercedes and wore shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Christina brought him to Beaumont once. Once. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Bradley stepped out of the Mercedes and looked at the house on Cypress Street the way you'd look at a roadside accident, with distant, clinical sympathy. He shook my hand. His grip was soft. His eyes went to the grease stain on my collar and stayed there for a beat too long. Dinner was awkward. Sarah had cooked for 2 days. Enchiladas, her mother's recipe, the kind of meal that filled our kitchen with the smell of home. Bradley picked at his food. He complimented the rustic charm of the house, which I later learned was rich person code for small and dated. After dinner, I heard Christina and Bradley talking in the car before they left. The windows were down. I was on the porch.
"Chris, your dad is nice."
I know.
"Does he always have grease on his hands?"
He's a mechanic, Bradley. That's what mechanics look like.
"Right. No, I get it. It's just..." My parents are going to ask questions. About your family, your background.
I'll handle it.
How?
Silence. Then Christina said,
I'll tell them what they need to hear.
I sat on the porch and listened to them drive away, and I felt something break inside me that I didn't know could break. My daughter was going to lie about me, not to protect me, to protect herself from me. Sarah came out and sat beside me. She'd heard it too.
She's going to erase us,
Sarah said quietly. She wouldn't.
She already is, Victor. She's been erasing us since high school.
Sarah died 8 months later. Pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed in March 2016, gone by November. Fast and merciless. Christina came home for the last 2 weeks. She held her mother's hand. She cried real tears. Whatever else Christina had become, her love for Sarah was genuine. At the funeral, Bradley stood beside Christina in a suit that cost more than the casket. He was polite, distant. He shook my hand and said, "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Novak." He called me Mr. Novak, not Victor, not Dad. Mr. Novak, like I was the help. After the funeral, Christina and I had a conversation that I replay in my mind almost every day. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Bradley and I are getting serious. His family is... they're particular. They care about backgrounds, about families, about appearances. I know what kind of people they are."
Dad, please don't say it like that. They're good people. They're just different from us.
"Different how?" Christina hesitated.
Bradley's parents have asked about my family, about you, about Mom. They want to know where I come from.
"And what did you tell them?" Another hesitation, longer this time.
I told them Mom passed away, which is true.
"And what did you tell them about me?" Christina looked at me, looked at the floor, looked out the window, looked anywhere but at my eyes.
I told them you died too.
The words hung in the air between us. I felt them physically, a pressure in my chest, a ringing in my ears, a sensation of falling while standing perfectly still. "You told them I'm dead."
Dad, I had to.
They would have... If they knew you were a mechanic in Beaumont, they would have judged me. They would have judged us. Bradley's mother already makes comments about people who marry up. I couldn't give her ammunition. "So you killed me." "I didn't kill you. I told them you weren't here anymore." "I'm standing right here, Christina."
I know, and I'm sorry. But Dad, this is my chance. Bradley is my future. His family has resources, connections, a life I've worked my whole career to access. I can't let my background ruin that.
"Your background? You mean me? I'm the background that ruins things."
That's not what I meant.
"It's exactly what you meant." Christina left the next morning. She hugged me at the door and said,
I'll call you, Dad. We'll figure this out.
She didn't call. Not that week, not the next month. The phone calls that had already been infrequent became non-existent. The daughter who'd been pulling away for years had finally let go completely. Christina married Bradley Ashworth in June 2017. I wasn't invited. I found out through a Facebook post that Sarah's sister showed me. Photographs of a wedding at a vineyard in Napa Valley. White flowers, string lights, 200 guests. Christina in a dress that could have paid my rent for a year. Bradley in a tuxedo. Both of them smiling like the world was exactly as it should be. I wasn't in any of the photographs. I wasn't mentioned in the announcement. As far as the Ashworth family knew, Christina's father had died years ago. Tragic. Sad. Conveniently out of the picture. I tried to reach Christina after the wedding. I called. I texted. I wrote letters.
Everything went unanswered. A number eventually changed. The letters came back. Return to sender, no forwarding address. My daughter had sealed the tomb. Victor Novak was dead, and Christina Ashworth had no father. The years that followed were the loneliest of my life. I kept working at Beaumont Automotive. I fixed engines and transmissions and brakes and everything else that came through the bay doors. I was good at it. I'd been good at it for 40 years. But the work that had always felt meaningful, providing, building, being useful, started to feel hollow.
I sold the house on Cypress Street in 2019. I couldn't afford the upkeep on one income, and the house was too full of ghosts. Sarah's kitchen, Christina's bedroom, the porch where I'd heard my daughter plan my erasure. I sold it for $145,000 and moved into the apartment above the hardware store. I also started working part-time at a gas station on Highway 69. Not because I needed the money, my pension and Social Security covered the basics, but because I needed to be around people. The apartment was too quiet. The silence had weight. At the gas station, there were customers, conversations, the simple human contact of saying, "Have a nice day," to someone who might be the only person I spoke to all morning. I was 58 years old, working a cash register at a gas station, because my daughter had decided I was too embarrassing to be alive. I didn't know about the baby. Christina never told me. I found out 3 years later, the same way I'd found out about the wedding, through Sarah's sister, who'd seen a social media post. Christina had a son, born in 2018. His name was Ethan Bradley Ashworth. I saw the photograph, a toddler with dark hair and Christina's eyes, and a smile that looked exactly like Sarah's. My grandson. A child who existed in the world with my blood in his veins, and no knowledge that I existed. I printed that photograph at the library. I put it on my refrigerator, and every morning, making coffee in my closet-sized kitchen, I'd look at that little face and feel the particular agony of loving someone you've never met. Years passed. I kept working. I kept living. I didn't try to contact Christina again. What was the point? She'd made her decision. She'd killed me off, and dead men don't call their daughters. But I never stopped thinking about Ethan. I wondered what he looked like now, what he liked, what he was afraid of. Whether he'd inherited Sarah's laugh, or Christina's ambition, or my hands. The thick, rough hands of a man who fixes things. I thought about him every day for 9 years. Then, on a Thursday afternoon in October 2023, a teenager walked into my gas station. He was about 14, tall for his age, thin, dark hair that needed a cut. He was wearing a private school uniform, blazer, tie, khaki pants, the kind of outfit that costs more per semester than I make in a month. He looked out of place on Highway 69, which is exactly the kind of road where private school kids don't usually stop. He walked to the counter to ask for directions. His phone had died, and he'd taken a wrong turn somewhere between Houston and somewhere else. I started giving him directions, and he looked at my name tag. Novak. Then he looked at my face, then back at the name tag. "Your last name is Novak?" he said. "That's right. My mom's maiden name is Novak. She said her dad died before I was born." He stared at me with an intensity that was too old for his face. "But you look exactly like the man in the one photo she kept." The world stopped. I looked at this boy, really looked at him, and I saw everything. Christina's eyes, Sarah's mouth, my father's jawline. The Novak face, unmistakable across generations. Standing in front of me, in a school blazer with a dead phone, asking for directions on a highway he shouldn't have been on. "What's your name?" I asked. My voice was barely a whisper.
Ethan Ashworth.
My grandson. The baby from the refrigerator photograph, now a teenager, standing 3 feet from me, breathing the same air, existing in the same room for the first time since the day he was born. Ethan, I said, and the name in my mouth tasted like every prayer I'd said for 9 years. What photo are you talking about? There's a photo my mom keeps in her jewelry box, an old one. A man in a work shirt standing next to a woman with dark hair. Mom said it was her parents. She said they both died before I was born. But you, he looked at my name tag again. You have the same last name. And you look like him. A lot like him. The woman in the photo, did she have a small scar above her left eyebrow? Ethan's eyes went wide. Yeah. How did you know that? Because that's your grandmother. Her name was Sarah. She got that scar falling off a bike when she was 12. And the man in the photo, my voice broke. I couldn't hold it. After 9 years of silence, 9 years of being dead, 9 years of looking at a photograph on a refrigerator and wondering, the truth was standing in front of me in a school blazer. And it was too much. The man in the photo is me, I said. I'm Victor Novak. I'm your grandfather. And I'm not dead. Ethan stared at me for what felt like an hour. His face went through every possible expression. Confusion, disbelief, fear, calculation, wonder. He was Christina's son. He had her ability to process information at speed, but he was also Sarah's grandson. He had her instinct for truth. Mom said you died of a heart attack. I didn't. I'm alive. I've been alive the whole time. But that doesn't... Why would she say you were dead? I looked at this boy, 14 years old, standing in a gas station on Highway 69, finding out that the dead grandfather from the jewelry box photo was alive and working a cash register in Beaumont, Texas. How do you explain to a teenager that his mother erased her own father because his hands were too rough for her new life? Ethan, your mother and I had a disagreement. A long time ago. She decided it was easier to tell people I was gone than to explain who I was. What kind of disagreement? The kind that happens when someone is ashamed of where they come from. Ethan was quiet. I could see the pieces clicking together in his mind. The private school, the Houston mansion, the Ashworth name, and then me. A mechanic in a gas station. The distance between those two worlds, and his mother's decision to bridge it by eliminating one. She was ashamed of you? Ethan said quietly. Of what I am, what I do, where I live. You're a mechanic? 45 years. And she told everyone you were dead because you're a mechanic? Because I wasn't what her new family expected. Because grease under your fingernails doesn't match a vineyard wedding. Ethan looked at my hands, the hands of a mechanic, scarred, rough, stained in the creases where no amount of scrubbing removes the evidence of honest work. There's nothing wrong with your hands, Ethan said. And the way he said it, plain, direct, like he was stating an obvious fact, sounded so much like Sarah that I had to grip the counter to stay upright. Ethan, does your mother know you're here? No, I was supposed to be at a friend's house. I took a wrong turn. A wrong turn from Houston to Highway 69 in Beaumont? A very wrong turn. He almost smiled. Do you have a way to get home? I'll charge my phone and call my friend. You can charge it here, behind the counter. Ethan plugged in his phone and sat on the stool behind the counter while I finished my shift. We talked for 2 hours. 2 hours of learning who my grandson was,
what he studied, what he liked, what he worried about. He told me about his school, his friends, his father's business, the house in River Oaks that had 7 bedrooms and a pool he never used. He told me about his mother, how she was always performing, always managing, always making sure everything looked perfect from the outside. "She's exhausting," Ethan said with the blunt honesty of a 14-year-old who hasn't yet learned to filter truth. "She cares more about what people think than what's actually real." "She's always been that way," I said. "Were you and Grandma Sarah poor?" "We weren't rich. We worked hard. We had a small house and a good life."
She's told me we come from nothing, like it's something to be ashamed of. There's no shame in where you come from, only in pretending you came from somewhere else. When Ethan's phone charged, he didn't call his friend immediately. He looked at me with those eyes, Christina's eyes, Sarah's intensity, and said, "Can I come back? Can I see you again?" "I'd like that more than anything. But Ethan, your mother can't know. Not yet. Not until I figure out the right way to handle this." "Why?" "Because your mother made a choice 9 years ago, and unwinding that choice is going to be complicated. I need to do it carefully."
Ethan nodded. He was 14, but he understood. He understood that his mother had built a life on a lie, and that the collapse of that lie would be devastating for everyone involved. "I'll be careful," he said. "But I want to know you. I've never had a grandparent. I thought they were all dead." "I'm not dead, Ethan. I'm right here." He hugged me before he left. A teenage boy in a private school blazer hugging a mechanic behind a gas station counter. If Christina could have seen it, she would have had a panic attack. But it was the most beautiful thing that had happened to me in 9 years. Over the next 3 months, Ethan visited every other week. He'd drive. He had a learner's permit and a level of rule bending that reminded me of myself at his age. He'd come to the gas station or to my apartment, and we'd talk. I'd cook, nothing fancy, the kind of food Sarah used to make: rice and beans, grilled chicken, fried eggs on Saturday mornings. I told him about Sarah. Everything. The dance hall, the wedding, the enchiladas, the scar above her eyebrow, the way she laughed, the way she loved. I told him about Christina, too. The good parts, the early parts, the daughter I raised before she became someone I didn't recognize.
Ethan absorbed everything with a hunger that broke my heart. This boy had grown up in a 7-bedroom house with a pool and private school and every material advantage money could buy, and he was starving for something none of it provided. Connection, history, the knowledge of where he came from. "Dad never talks about his family either," Ethan told me once. "The Ashworths are all about image. Everything has to look right. Nobody ever talks about anything real. Your grandmother used to say that the richest people she knew were the poorest at being honest. Grandma Sarah sounds like she was cool. She was the best person I ever knew." I also called a lawyer during this time. A woman named Rebecca Garza, recommended by Charles, because Charles had moved to Houston 2 years ago and still insisted on solving my problems from 90 miles away. Rebecca specialized in family law and had seen cases like mine before. "Mr. Novak, your daughter lied about your death to her husband and his family. That's not a crime in the traditional sense, but it has significant implications, especially regarding your grandchild. Ethan has been denied a relationship with a living grandparent based on a deliberate falsehood. What can I do?" "Several things. First, we document the lie, the timeline, the impact, the deliberate concealment. Second, we establish your relationship with Ethan, which is already happening. Third, when you're ready, we approach either Christina directly or, if she refuses to cooperate,
We pursue grandparental visitation rights through the courts. And Bradley, her husband? Bradley was lied to as well. He believes his father-in-law is dead. When he discovers the truth, it will have serious implications for his marriage and his trust in Christina. That's not your concern legally, but it will be a factor in how this unfolds. I wasn't ready to confront Christina yet. I needed more time with Ethan. I needed him to know me, really know me, before the storm hit. Because when Christina found out that her dead father was alive and building a relationship with her son, the storm would be catastrophic.
The storm came sooner than expected. 4 months after the gas station encounter, Ethan made a mistake. He left his phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, and Christina saw a text exchange with a contact labeled Grandpa V. Ethan told me later what happened. Christina went white. She grabbed the phone. She read every message. 4 months of conversations between her son and the father she'd buried. "Mom lost it," Ethan said when he called me that evening. "She was screaming. She said you were manipulating me. She said you were dangerous. She said she'd told me you were dead for a reason." "What did you say?" "I said you're not dangerous. You're a mechanic who works at a gas station and makes really good fried eggs. And I said, if you're so terrible, why did she keep your photo in her jewelry box?"
What did she say to that?
She didn't say anything. She just cried. Christina didn't call me. Bradley did. It was 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, a number I didn't recognize, a voice I'd only heard once at Sarah's funeral. "Mr. Novak, this is Bradley Ashworth, Christina's husband." "I know who you are, Bradley. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Are you Christina's father?" "Yes." "Are you alive?" "I'm talking to you." Long silence. "Christina told me you died of a heart attack in 2014. She told her parents the same thing. She told Ethan. She told everyone." "No. Why?" "Because I'm a mechanic in Beaumont, Texas, and that didn't fit the story she wanted to tell." Another long silence. I could hear Bradley breathing, processing, recalculating 9 years of marriage based on a lie about a dead man who wasn't dead. "Mr. Novak, I need to see you, in person. Can you come to Houston?" "I'll come tomorrow." "Come to my office, not the house. Christina doesn't know I'm calling you." I drove to Houston the next morning. Bradley's office was in a glass tower downtown, the kind of building where mechanics don't usually have appointments. I wore clean clothes. I didn't try to hide my hands. Bradley met me in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He looked different from what I remembered. Older, harder. Like a man who'd just discovered that the foundation of his house was built on sand. "Tell me everything," he said. I told him, from the beginning. The house on Cypress Street, Sarah, Christina's embarrassment, the conversation after Bradley's first visit, Christina's admission at Sarah's funeral that she'd told the Ashworths I was dead, the silence, the 9 years of non-existence, the gas station encounter with Ethan. Bradley listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his face with both hands. "She lied about everything," he said. "Not just about you, about her background. She told me she grew up in a middle-class family in Houston. She told me her parents were both gone. She told me she went to Rice on an academic scholarship, which is true, but she made it sound like she came from a family that valued education, not a mechanic's family." I wasn't going to say it like that. "You can. It's what she was hiding." Bradley was quiet. Then he said something that surprised me. "Mr. Novak, I grew up with money. I know what money does to people. I know how it makes them perform,
pretend, conceal. I've watched my own family do it for 3 generations. But I married Christina because I thought she was different. I thought she was real. She was real once.
Was she? Or was I just another audience? That's between you and him.
Dad, everything I built, the life, the reputation, the connections, it's all falling apart.
Because it was built on a lie, Christina. You built your entire life on the corpse of your own father. And the thing about building on a corpse is that, eventually, the ground gives way. Silence. Then, barely audible.
I'm sorry. For which part? For telling your husband I was dead? For keeping my grandson from me? For being ashamed of the man who worked double shifts so you could go to Rice? For burying me because my hands weren't clean enough for your new family?
For all of it. For everything. Sorry is a word, Christina. Your mother used to say that sorry means nothing without action behind it.
What do you want me to do?
I want you to tell Ethan the truth. All of it. Not the version you've been performing, the real truth. About who you are. About where you come from. About the father you erased and the mother who loved you, and the house on Cypress Street where you learned to walk. Christina cried. For a long time. And for the first time in 9 years, I didn't hang up. I listened. Because despite everything, despite the erasure and the lies, and the 9 years of silence, she was still my daughter. And a father doesn't stop loving his child. He just learns to love them with his eyes open. Rebecca Garza handled the legal aspects. There were no criminal charges. Christina hadn't committed fraud in the traditional sense. But Rebecca filed for legally protected grandparental visitation rights, which the court granted immediately given the circumstances. Christina couldn't prevent me from seeing Ethan again. Bradley and Christina separated. They didn't divorce immediately. Bradley wanted time to process, and Christina entered therapy to confront what Rebecca diplomatically called patterns of deception rooted in deep shame. The Ashworth family found out everything. Bradley's mother, the woman Christina had been so desperate to impress, called me. I expected hostility. Instead, she said, "Mr. Novak, I owe you an apology. My family's values, our emphasis on appearances, on background, on social standing, contributed to an environment where your daughter felt she had to erase her own father to be accepted. I'm ashamed of that." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said, "Thank you, ma'am." "Call me Helen." "Thank you, Helen." Over the following months, things shifted, slowly, painfully, the way broken bones heal, with aching, with stiffness, with the constant awareness that something was damaged and may never be exactly the same. Ethan visited every weekend. I taught him to change oil, to check tire pressure, to identify the sound of a failing alternator. He was a natural. The Novak hands, thick and capable, adapting to tools like they'd been waiting for them. "Mom hates that I come here," Ethan said once, lying under a car in my buddy's garage, helping me with a brake job. "She doesn't hate it. She's afraid of it." "Afraid of what?" "That you'll see where she came from and love it more than where she ended up." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then slid out from under the car. His private school hands were covered in brake dust and grease. He looked at them and smiled. "These look like your hands, Grandpa." "Best compliment I've ever gotten." Christina came to Beaumont 4 months after the confrontation. She came alone. She stood in my apartment, the 1 bedroom above the hardware store, the closet kitchen, the shower that takes 5 minutes to warm up. And she looked around with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Not appraisal, not embarrassment. Grief. The grief of someone seeing for the first time what their choices cost the people they loved. "This is where you've been living?" she whispered. "For 4 years.
Dad, this is...
It's enough. It's clean, it's paid for, and nobody in it pretends to be something they're not. Christina sat down on my couch, the one I'd bought at a yard sale for $40, and put her head in her hands.
I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for everything.
Tell me why you did it, not the excuse. The real reason. Christina was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that cut me deeper than anything she'd ever said before, because it was the truth.
Because when I looked at you, I saw my future. I saw a life of hard work and small houses and grease under my fingernails. And I was terrified. Not of you, of becoming you, of ending up where I started. So I erased you. Because if you didn't exist, then the life you represented didn't exist. And I could pretend I was someone who'd always been destined for more.
And were you?
Destined for more?
I don't know anymore. I have a 7-bedroom house and a pool I never use, and a husband who doesn't trust me, and a son who'd rather change brake pads with you than go to his own birthday parties. So you tell me, Dad, was it worth it? That's not for me to answer. I know, but I needed to ask. We sat in my apartment for 3 hours. We talked about Sarah, about the house on Cypress Street, about the enchiladas and the piano lessons and the dance classes and the double shifts, about the things I'd given up so she could become the person who would eventually erase me. When she left, she hugged me. Not the polished, performative hug of Christina Ashworth, the desperate, clinging hug of Christina Novak. The daughter I'd raised, the girl I'd worked double shifts for, the girl who'd been so afraid of being me that she'd killed me off and spent 9 years living with the ghost.
I'm going to fix this, she said.
Fixing is what Novaks do, I said. We're good at it. She almost smiled. Today, it's been 6 months since Christina came to Beaumont. Things aren't fixed. They're not perfect. They're not the way they were before, and they never will be. But they're moving. Bradley and Christina are in counseling. He hasn't forgiven her fully, and he may never, but he's trying, which is more than most people would do. Ethan comes to Beaumont every other weekend. He's learning to rebuild a 1972 Ford Bronco I picked up at auction, a project for both of us. Something to build together the way my father built things with me. His hands are rough now, calloused. He's proud of them. Christina calls me every Thursday evening. The conversations are careful, tender, like two people learning to walk on a bridge they're building as they go. She started telling Ethan about Sarah. Real stories, true stories. Not the sanitized version she'd been performing for 9 years. I still work at the gas station, 3 days a week. Not because I need to, but because I like the people, the routine, the simple act of being useful. The manager offered to take my name tag off the counter display. For privacy, she said, after the whole story came out. I told her to leave it. Novak, right there on the counter, where anyone can see it. Because I'm not hiding anymore. And nobody in my family should have to. I'm Victor Novak. I'm 62 years old. I'm a mechanic. I work at a gas station. I live above a hardware store. My hands are rough, and there's grease under my fingernails that no amount of scrubbing will remove. And I'm not dead. I was never dead. I was just invisible. And the thing about invisible people is that eventually someone sees them. Sometimes it's a 14-year-old boy in a school blazer looking at a name tag and recognizing the face from a photograph his mother hid in a jewelry box. That's enough. That's more than enough. If this story touched you, please leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe for more stories about family, truth, and the things we do to the people we love. Before we close, this story, like all stories on this channel, contains fictional elements crafted for entertainment and educational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, that's completely okay. Take care of yourselves. But if you stayed until the end, thank you. Sarah would have liked you. She liked people who listened all the way through. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a Bronco to rebuild. Ethan's coming this weekend, and those brake lines aren't going to replace themselves.